Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Harrow East for leading the debate and the very important and pertinent points that he made. I want to firstly, Mr Deputy Speaker, just talk about the situation in Scotland, and then we'll maybe talk about the cost of living crisis and some of the other issues which the Honourable Gentleman for Harrow East excuse me, had made. So let's make this very clear, Mr Deputy Speaker. 1 year on from Putin's illegal invasion, the message of the SNP to Ukrainian arrivals remains crystal clear. Scotland is your home for as long as you need it to be. Now, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine last February, the UNHCR has recorded that over 8 million refugees from Ukraine and across Europe. That's around 20% of the Ukrainian population. From the outset of the crisis, Scotland has been ready to help, as the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said at the time, let people in and do the paperwork afterwards.
Honourable Gentleman,
of course.
I'm grateful to him for giving me, because of course he's absolutely right. We had the super sponsor scheme in Scotland, which I think everybody thought was a great initiative. But did it not actually fall foul of the point that the Honourable Member from Harrow East was making? And namely, that is that we thought that the problem was over when we got people to Scotland. We didn't see it as a long-term exercise, and as a consequence, as he'll be aware, we've had almost 2,500 people living in cruise ships, which the British Red Cross sees as completely, and I think they're right, is completely inappropriate for their needs. So, as we look, we're going to be dealing with these situations many times in the future. Learn from the mistakes of what we've made this time and understand that when the refugees arrive here, that's the beginning of the story, not the end.
I have sympathy with that. He mentioned the cruise ship, which of course one of them is currently based in my constituency, at least until the end of the month, and I'm going to touch on some of those issues. But I think that he makes a case that I think a lot of people did think that this situation would end quickly, and of course it hasn't. And I think that all of us as elected members and governments across the board should always learn from things as they develop. So I thank him for that. As the Right Honourable Gentleman for Orkney and Shetland has mentioned, the super sponsor scheme has been overwhelmingly popular with local authorities, the third sector and local communities all working in partnership. And as a result, the last 12 months has seen nearly 23,000 people from Ukraine arriving to safety in Scotland, with over 18,900 of those arriving through that super sponsor scheme. That represents around 20.4% of all UK arrivals. The Scottish Government is supporting the scheme with over £70 million allocated for the Ukrainian resettlement programme for 2023-24 to ensure that communities continue to receive help to rebuild their lives. Coming on to the action taken in Scotland, the Right Honourable Gentleman mentioned the cruise ship, and I have visited the cruise ship to help constituents because they became constituents. And one of the issues, and I raised this at the Westminster Hall debate last week, and I think some of the issues I'm raising here are going to be a bit of a replay about that. But one of the issues that I've faced, and I'd be interested to hear from the Honourable Gentleman from Harrow East, is that one of the big concerns is that they are waiting months, and far too long in my view, for the biometric residence permits to come from the Home Office. And I hope that the Minister will once again take that issue with the Home Office, because I'm still having to deal with this on a weekly basis, where I'm getting emails from Ukrainian refugees looking for the biometric residence permits so they could then go on to employment. And I'm getting an indication from the Honourable Gentleman from Harrow East and others across the Chamber that that does remain a problem. So I hope the Minister will take that up on behalf of us all, that does remain an issue. The focus needs to now be matching people onto suitable long-term accommodation, because the cruise ship that's currently based in Govan is, will no longer be there. And it does seem that that support is happening, and certainly the support on the cruise ship is that you've got the Department of Work and Pensions, you've got the Education Department, you've got Council, you've got the Health and Social Care Partnership. They're all based in the ship and they're all helping people as best they can. In September, the Scottish Government introduced the Ukraine Longer-Term Resettlement Fund with up to £50 million available to bring council and empty properties into use and to increase housing supply. And I think that we do need to have this discussion again on housing policy across the board, but it seems permanent with Ukraine refugees is that there is a lot of homelessness, but there's also empty properties, and there seems to be something that we think we should be done that. And of course, I'll give way.
Thank the Honourable Member for making a really powerful speech on this issue. And one of the areas that was highlighted in the evidence session that the Honourable Member for Harrow East highlighted when we heard from a number of those women were the issues with housing. And particularly, I'll refer back to the situation in London in terms of the cost of housing. Is there anything more that maybe the government can learn in terms of what he just outlined that the Scottish Government are doing in terms of bringing empty properties back into use? Because I think my frustration is that we know that there are many empty properties which a number of councils could bring back into use, but the fact is their funding has been cut drastically for the past 13 years.
Well, I'm going to come on to the UK government support in this regard, but it seems to me that we should be encouraging local authorities and indeed the government to look at the empty properties situation. And in terms of London, I mean, when I go past an estate agency in London, I thought it was a Premiership transfer fee I was looking at, and not the property price, because that seems to be a big problem in London. And obviously, those of us who are not London MPs who have to try and find accommodation, I have to say it can be very difficult indeed. But that's I think the case that there's a specific London issue, I think, is a case that's been very well made in this particular debate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the hostile environment has made it difficult for Ukrainian refugees to move into longer-term rented accommodation. And again, the Honourable Member for Harrow East made this point. And let me develop the point. The 2014 Immigration Act introduced a right-to-rent scheme that obliged landlords to carry out immigration checks on the prospective tenants. But this legislation was found to have a discriminatory impact, making landlords less likely to rent their properties to people from minority groups. And again, the Honourable Member for Harrow East had said that there are landlords who are refusing to take Ukrainian refugees, and I do think that again is something that has to look at that. And of course I'll give way.
He's absolutely right to point out the issues of the right to rent scheme. There are some additional barriers for Ukrainians, and we'd like to call them co-chair Ukrainians, temporarily displaced people, so we're hoping they'll go back after the war. But there's the issues of guarantors and of deposits, and those are really big issues to overcome as well. And so there's a whole range of issues that I really think that the Home Office and Deluxe need to look at to ensure these people can get into housing.
Well, friend, for that, he makes an excellent point, and again, I hope the Minister will answer questions in that regard. Excuse me, because the structure of the UK rental market places power in the hands of landlords, and it does seem to undermine any rights that tenants may be afforded under the law. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm going to come on to the cost of living crisis, which is again a point well made by the Honourable Gentleman for Harrow East. The last year has placed unprecedented financial pressure on households. Cost of living crisis is playing havoc with people's finances, and many hosts who opened their doors to Ukrainian arrivals last March could not have fully have appreciated how bad the cost of living crisis is going to become, with inflation at 10.5% in December last year. And from January, the UK Government support available to local councils was cut from £10,500 to £5,900 for each arrival. That really seems to be a short-sighted decision, something which I'm sure the Very Honourable Gentleman for Orkney and Shetland, developing his point further, was taken without any consultation with devolved administrations. And I hope the Minister will be able to answer that, because research has shown that employment and language support is crucial for Ukrainians going forward, and councils need to be receiving the proper funding to provide that. And as the Honourable Gentleman for Birkenhead had said, the Local Government Association continues to warn of the growing number of Ukrainians presenting as homeless to councils, particularly the significant rise in those who have arrived in the Homes for Ukraine scheme. And data released in February showed that 4,295 Ukrainian households have presented themselves to councils as homeless. That's a 40% increase since November 2022. The Government can't simply pass the buck to local authorities on this, and it must ensure that sustained funding to ensure no one has volunteered to take part in the scheme. And lastly, Mr Deputy Speaker, the uplift in the thank you payment from £350 to £500 was welcome. However, I hope that the Government will listen to the concerns of the British Red Cross, who say that the increase could come too late and won't always be enough. And Mr Deputy Speaker, I look forward to hearing from other members in this debate. Thank you.